Lorenzo, I'm going to talk about something that is we all marketers understand, but I don't think we fully understand how big a role it plays. So I want to talk about the role of emotions in purchases. And I think the theory that is out there, which is like if something is an impulse buy, the end cap items in the store, then that is more emotional, so you can kind of play on emotions. But if it's someone's buying a house or someone's buying a wedding ring or someone's finding a spouse, it is more rational. And I know there's tons of studies done on this. Dan Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize, has actually studied this prospect theory, and their theory is that actually if the risk is really high, emotions play an even bigger role. And what they found was that they did this with gambling. So I want to just underscore the importance of emotion. And I think it just I think what happens is that when someone is making, I don't you have to slow down and meditate and think about the choices that we make in our lives to realize how much of it is driven by emotions. So I've just been thinking so much about emotions, and I think that in our marketing, when I look at product pages and I look at bullet points, and they say, this product can do these 5 things, I feel like they're not really appealing to my emotions, or they're not writing it in a way that connects with me emotionally. I want to get your perspective on this whole topic, and how do you see it? And
Yeah, I have to say that now you were talking about emotions. The first question I would have is there any way I can target people that are at the highest level of emotions almost? Um Almost like finally I'm seeing the product that I've always kind of like looked for. One question I would have is that like how could in a sea of fishes, right?
yes,
How can I laser target just the fishes with the highest level of emotion? Or, thinking about like the movie industry, right? How can I communicate emotion with a movie kind of like framework? Or is it this famous copywriter that says, copywriting is writing a movie in the user is playing in his mind
yeah,
about what's happening, right? So talking about my emotion, my just when you just talked about this, my kind of like counterpoint to that is like, I wonder if there's a way to attract people that have the highest level of emotions. I don't know if it's possible, but something to
yeah.
think
I mean,
about.
I actually think there are two levers that the marketer has. One is, your like you said, is attracting and playing to the people that have a higher emotional state. But the other thing, and I think this is where marketers miss out on, is you can actually activate an emotional state. So you can have someone in a rational state of mind, and you can show them in a very interesting magical combination of words that activate their emotional state. Politicians do this very well. People don't care about an issue, right? And a politician then spins it in a way where people are like, oh, I really care about this, and this is really, really important to me. And so I think you can actually activate emotions. So not only can you attract people that have a certain emotional state, you can actually attract people that don't have that emotional state and activate that emotional state. My biggest point here is that I've had a lot of clients talk to me, and they'll say something like, my product is scientifically better than all of the other competitors. And to me, it's like, wah, 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 because it means nothing to the consumer, right? And I think if they were rational, then yes, this is a very important distinction. But because they're not, the fact that you're the best is somewhat meaningless. And so you have to then figure out, how do I translate this emotionally? And that's the key point I want to make.
I want to talk about actually quickly about an experiment that Netflix, and I'll put the link to the experiment in the notes. So Netflix basically ran an experiment a few years ago where they changed the thumbnail of the movies. I think I told you about this before. And they changed the thumbnail of a bunch of movies in their catalog. And basically, like, instead of just like picking like just random sort of like thumbnails, they just changed thumbnails to thumbnails where they were showing, like, people were showing emotions, right? Like either sadness or excitement and so on. And they had amazing results. They first kind of like went with the MVP approach where they just changed, let's say, like 100 thumbnails for 100 titles, and then they saw an initial traction of that experiment because it had positive results, and they started to hire a bunch of like design agencies to scale the experiment to like thousands and thousands and thousands of movie
Love it.
titles. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a continuous iteration that they run, of experiments that they run every month because of the success that they've had. Because again, like, imagine, for one movie, imagine the amount of thumbnails that you can generate and test on, right?
Yeah. And, and just to kind of expand on this, a lot of people watching this video will say, well, we already know emotions matter. Why are these guys talking about it? So I think we've mentioned a couple of things here. We've talked about the Netflix example. We've talked about activating emotions. I think that's another idea. But I want to give you a third thing that you'd be mindful about when it comes to emotions. Emotions work best when the reader doesn't know that their emotions are being manipulated or persuaded, right? So sometimes we over emotionalize the copy, and actually that backfires. So you have to find the right balance just below the level of consciousness. So there's a lot of skill involved. It's not just about like, oh, I understand emotion, it's a checklist item and I'm done with it. It's about how do I modulate the right frequency of emotion, makes a big difference. So guys who are watching this is a very important topic, and it's also a very complex topic, and there is so much subtlety with it. Read books on poetry, read books on fiction, and you'll really understand like the subtlety of using emotion. It's not just about using emotion, but it's about using it appropriately. It's about activating emotions, taking people from one emotional state to another emotional state. um, Leave us a comment. Tell us what aspect of emotions your sales pitch uses. Ask us questions, and if you can think of anyone in your network who would benefit by focusing more on emotions, share this video with them. We'd really appreciate it. We will see you again with yet another episode. Take care. Ciao.